What's up everyone, this is Ryan here. In this video series, I'm going to explain an introduction and overview of software architecture on the Android platform, as well as a whole bunch of key concepts which will help you on multiple different platforms in software architecture in general. A few basics of Kotlin for those who are totally new to the language or coming from Java, which was sort of my situation. Obviously, I can't give you an entire lesson on the entire language, but I'll try and fill in some of the most important blanks for you. And there's going to be plenty of code, tangents, and rambling to help you absorb and implement these ideas in your own work. The project we'll be building is just a simple material design calculator app. A calculator app is generally one of the first apps I recommend anyone builds when they're learning a new platform or a new language, and building this app helped me to transition from Java to Kotlin. Now, while the app concept and problem domain is very small so that we can focus on the concepts themselves, we're going to be building this calculator in a way which is safe from the fragile life cycle of the activity by holding temporary view state in a ViewModel object. Easily testable, as important classes will be smaller and we'll have them communicate in a way which promotes loose coupling. I'll describe what that is later on. And it's going to be reactive where appropriate. And again, I'll talk about that later on. Anyways, let's have a quick look at the application's architecture in a more visual format. The diagram I have in front of you is exactly what this application looks like from the perspective of a simple software architecture diagram. Now, this is most certainly a trick question, but can you guess what this architecture is called? Now, before we get to kind of what I have taken to calling it, the most important thing you need to realize about all of these different styles of architecture is that it's not actually really important what the names mean, but rather what each component does, and the overarching goal of separating your architecture as so. And that overarching goal is called separation of concerns. So anyways, if you really want some keywords to look up, we could call this architecture Model View Presenter Passive View. So passive view is sort of a derivative of Model View Presenter, where the view is kept very, very simple. And there's also a view model as well. Now, the thing about this view model over here is that honestly, the reason why it's called view model, and there's sort of some ambiguity with this and the model view model pattern, is that unfortunately Android architecture components, which is where this class will be coming from, chose to name this particular class view model. Now, all I was really looking for was some class which was lifecycle aware that could maintain the front-end state of the application, something which I would call a view model. Now, one of the things that is kind of my big criticism of model view model architecture is that I've seen many implementations that don't have any kind of a controller or presenter, and then the view model becomes a lot more than just a state container. But in the context of this application, I would still argue that this is more or less model view presenter, and if you are really upset about this view model thing, you can always change the name to something else. Really just treat it like another part of the model, except that it's on the front end instead of the back end, and its job is to maintain temporary UI state throughout the course of the application. For the back end, we have this thing down here called a use case, which our presenter will be talking to, and the use case has multiple different kind of jobs, but one of the main things it's going to do is it's going to kind of abstract out and hide all of the finer details of what the back end is going to be doing from our presenter. So how this is going to work is the presenter will call a use case and send it whatever data it needs, and then with this use case it will coordinate sort of the back end of the application. So if you want to kind of think about it in this way, I generally think of these use cases or interactors, or there's multiple different terms you can use for them, as sort of the back end logic or thinking part of the application. And then the presenter is sort of a front-end logic or thinking part of the application. So hopefully that kind of clears up some of the questions you might have about the architecture. Probably it gave you a lot more, but don't worry, we'll be going into each part of this architecture sort of case by case and breaking down not only what each part is, but why I've gone about designing it in a particular way. So that's basically it. Let's hop over to the outro. This content was brought to you for free by me and the wonderful people who support me on Patreon, PayPal, and social media. One of the main reasons why I don't just do a quick cash in and post all this stuff on Udemy is that I want these courses to be viewable by people even if they can't afford post-secondary education or online courses. Believe me, I understand exactly what that feels like. However, with that being said, if you would like to help me out and see that I might have put in months and weeks and many hundreds of hours into making this kind of content, and you'd like to help me out a little bit, consider signing up to my Patreon page or sending me a couple bucks on PayPal. And if you can't afford that and you'd still like to help out, you can do me a favor by liking and sharing my crap on social media, writing a comment down below, and hitting the like button on each video. And if that's too much work for you, then, well, I wish you well. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video where we're going to be talking about data sources and the repository pattern.